A value is something that you use as a decision-making tool. Is it something you should do or is it not? The only way to know that is if it's truly in alignment deeply with that value. If my comfort zone isn't being expanded on a regular basis, if I am not growing in like doing the kinds of personal growth work that I love and that I thrive in, if I'm not knowing myself more every single quarter, if I'm not achieving these different things that are part of my litmus test to whether I'm living in growth or not, then how do I know that I'm actually living in my values? And if you can't say that with all of your values, then go back to the drawing board and see if they're the right words.
Welcome to the Crown Yourself podcast, where together we build your empire and transform your subconscious stories about what's possible for your business, body, and life. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, founder of crownyourself.com, and I'm a master mindset coach, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, known to my clients as a game changer. Each week, you get the conscious leadership strategies you need to help you reign with courage, clarity, and confidence so that you too can make the income and impact you deserve. Imagine this podcast as your royal invitation to step into your full potential and reign in your divine purpose. Your sovereignty starts here, and your reign is now.
I think the biggest thing that people need to see is I wish they were here in this room with us to see just how much fun we're already having, and we haven't even done anything.
Exactly. And just how much fun can be instigated in like 15 seconds. It's amazing.
Exactly.
Because guess what? It's energy.
It
just
is
like everything
energy.
Else.
It's laughter. It's joy. It brings that, it dilutes the seriousness that I think, especially as you're in the beginning stages of your business, or if you're in a scaling stage of your business, like there's serious things and people's livelihoods and employees' livelihoods on the line.
Yep.
And it can feel like a lot of pressure.
Daunting. It's not only your life anymore, it's the lives of so many others, and it's your family, and it's everybody's opinions of us is what we're worried about. It's just all these compounding things that create a cacophony of seriousness. And how the heck is that fun?
Yeah.
How the heck is that fun?
Especially when most people get into building their own business for the sake of having freedom.
Exactly. So what is there in that, downtrodden, trudging through the quicksands of business? How is that life-giving? It's no wonder so many people burn out and don't make it to a certain level. And, they get to those pit stops and they're like, God, okay, I made it to 250K. All right. How am I going to get to that next huge mountain? It feels like it's so far away. How am I going to possibly do that? And especially if I'm already working 60 hours a week, what am I going to have to do? Am I going to have to work 80 hours a week? Am I going to have to get no, I should just go get a job at Starbucks. Forget this. I'm done. It's the roller coaster that we go through at all these different stages.
Yeah. What have you noticed for you was the hardest leap?
Several of them. The initial years when I was in business was 2008 and 2009. So during the worst time possible.
Same year. Yeah.
I decided to choose to get into social media marketing. And so nobody even knew what that was here in Denver, let alone why they would need to pay for it. And let's just say that my first couple of years of business revenue was like $25,000. And I don't know how I survived on that, but I call them the ramen years. And I'm like, if I made it through the ramen years, I can make it through anything. So that was a tough one. But I learned so many valuable lessons at all of these points. Like at that point, it's just like, man, if you can get yourself past those initial stages of, I will do anything for anyone. And if you can get into a focus lane of where your zone of genius is and really narrow down and niche in, your growth trajectory is going to be a lot more comfortable and it's going to be a lot more fun. But there's also this giant element of fear that comes in at that point in time of, well, then what if I choose the wrong niche? Or I'm going to ostracize certain people, or I don't even know what my niche should be, or all of that. So that was one of them. And then the next one took me about the first 6 years of business to get past 100,000 in revenue. in my marketing business. And that was, a period of, again, like the thing that got me to that point was I slimmed down. Instead of having customization for all these 10, 12, 15 different iterations of my offerings, I slimmed it down to one. And you went through this path. And if you didn't work with me in this path, then I had a suite of power partners that I would refer you to who might be a better fit for your marketing needs. But that helped me scale to that 6 figures and into like multi 6 figures just by focusing there. And then, yes, I had a follow-up program that they could work with me in. But so that was another one. And then I would say the pandemic was a blur because I was the breadwinner. And so I just put my head down and got to work. And I did what I knew, which was connecting. And I was doing one-on-one calls to get women into the Dames. So I was doing an average of 20 to 30 hours a week of one-on-one calls and growing the Dames, which was great because we had a virtual everything. So we didn't have to do the whole pivot, like we have to rebuild our website, we have to this, we have to that. Didn't have to do that. But and I'm not at all comparing myself to those who are on the front line or who are, it's not called mandatory workers. What was it called? Necessary. But I'm not saying that I was that, but I felt like that because I just didn't take a break. And
I think a lot of business owners haven't like actually sufficiently processed the trauma actually collectively of those years of, there was so much that we didn't know. I mean, I was stuck in a foreign country, the family and the bread. So like that was that whole season of life of surrender. And one of the things that bothered me so much was, was not a frontline worker, but at the same time calling people whose businesses, whose they built their lives on, not necessary, peeved me to my core. Because I'm like, it may not be necessary to the global sphere at this moment, but I disagree. I think if it's necessary to your family, then that's supporting the global sphere because you have a healthy, holistic family unit because you're not fretting and worrying about money. And I think that the ability to put your head down, do the work, do the calls, build the connections, build the relationships, it's such a testament to who you are and how great you are at connecting and how you were able to hone in on that genius zone. I'd love to know your process for what led you to discovering my genius zone beyond anything else is connecting.
Yeah. So what's interesting is it's been, of course, like everything else, it's been a journey. So it started looking at that with reading The Big Leap and doing a book club on it in 2016. And that's when I really uncovered and start with why. I really uncovered that I am here to create love and fun on this planet through connection is the main mechanism. And so that was that first aha of, if I am not actually creating and living in fun and love and doing that through the art of connection, myself and others, then I'm usually miserable. And when I would evaluate that along with my values, along with my mission and vision, I could always find those points like, this is why I'm feeling this way because I'm not in alignment with this particular thing. So it's always a continuous refinement. And then I got into, I can't remember what was the next pad, like jumping pad from there, but then the next step, a stepping stone, whatever, launch pad, who cares? They're all these metaphors. The next one was, really getting into 10X is easier than 2X and looking at it and saying, okay, my unique abilities are, yes, to create connection in unique ways, but also to create transformation, like systemic transformation, and to perform in order to educate, which I call edutainment. And those three things are, as long as I have those three components in my week as the majority of my time, then I am on my path. And it's because I'm in those zones of genius. And I realized, especially in reading The Big Leap, that my most of the things that I was doing in my marketing business were in my zone of excellence or competence. And that's why I never felt fueled, but almost always felt drained. I was great at it and it didn't fuel me. So when I gave myself the permission, that was why the pandemic was so transformational for me. When I gave myself the permission to close my marketing business, literally December 31st, 2019, that made it so that I could then go into 2020 with this gorilla off my back and be able to really step into my leadership in the games. And I was unfaltering, because even though it was so hard to go from like, gosh, we just launched a chapter in our first out-of-state chapter in February of 2020. We just had all this momentum to launch other chapters. And even though that was like kind of a fall on the face, it was like, oh, I can jump right back up and I can keep running because I had a vision, getting in touch with my intuition. So we're going backwards in time now, starting in 2012, to really figure out what is it that I want for my future and what is it that I'm going to create. And the big thing, the vision there was like global connection. And it's not about shifting paradigms just here in the United States. It's about bringing more women to the 7-figure mark or to high-performing 6 figures, whatever that case is, so that we can be the primary breadwinners if we choose to, or we can create change in our families by bringing our income potential to the table. We can create, therefore, then changes in our local communities because women are making decisions and have buying power and have decision-making power through their businesses. And then we can start rippling out toward our cities, toward our states, toward our countries, toward the world. And that is done by each and every one of us women getting in touch with our true feminine power and moving more into that space of, okay, I'm not going to follow the herd. And instead, I'm going to get really in touch with, in alignment with where it is that I'm meant to be on this planet. And part of that was uncovering the unique abilities, uncovering the zone of genius, etc.
I love that you opened up and unlocked the feminine power, because I know on this podcast we've talked a lot about the dance between the masculine and the feminine, and I think a lot of women as business owners, like one of the horror stories that I've heard from having coached leaders for the past 9 years in multiple different industries was that it was never the men that was holding women back. It was the women. It was this sisterhood wound where we adopted a masculine values level 3, as Claire Graves would say, mentality of like solo, in it for the kill, like just like we're at the top. And understandably, like a lot of women had to work to get to that place at the table. But now, how can we extend that hand and like lift others up with us? And I think one of the most challenging ones to do, having worked with people making under 6 figures and people making over like 10, 20 times over 6 figures, is that gap. And how can bringing the feminine energy into business bridge that 5 to 6 figure gap?
It has to be the same part of the paradigm shift that you go through, that you and I are so passionate about, of removing competition and believing in collaboration and watching how collaboration happens. So what's interesting about what you said is part of the unlocking of the divine feminine power is in community. Women are naturally built to be in community since the dawn of time. If you read any books that are, haven't been censored, or if you can get a hold of books of, or stories of women, we came together and we supported each other. We raised families in communities. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a business nowadays. And I think that what we get confused by is, what are those divine feminine powers that we're not tapping into? And we instead overexert our masculine because there have been places where we have had to be that energy in order to be accepted and in order to be brought in. And there is a lot of reality around, like you said, the wounded sisterhood or the sisterhood wound. that I even experienced in corporate. Women who were, instead of laying down a red carpet for each other to help each other walk across it, were instead on the ladder above, taking off their heel and smacking the other women down. And that's what a lot of us experienced if we were ever in corporate. So I think that women business owners have the most unique ability and unique position to really be the pioneers of this particular paradigm shift into one where women don't burn out, women don't have overwhelm, because they have learned that adopting the masculine energy all the time is not the way to get there. And everyone is on their own personal journey to really understand and get deep inside to figure out what feminine energies they're not bringing and calling to the surface. But also there's an interesting societal transformation that we're all going through. And while this is not me saying that it's the patriarchy or it's the men or whatever, I was in a marriage where I didn't have a lot of equality or equal anything. And I started over earning my husband early on. And that was a big problem for us, despite the fact that he would say that it wasn't. It was a constant fight, and it came up all the time. And I think that is a change that we're going through, where we're all still trying to figure out how to navigate that dance. And where if we as women can talk about these real things in safe spaces, in safe communities, and really pull the cat out of the bag and let this stuff out, just same as being able to talk about things like menopause, things like raising young children with running a business. These things are challenging and haven't really been talked about for that long, maybe the last 10 years, if that. And they affect us all. So we're all trying to learn this new way of being. And it requires pioneers like you and me to say, okay, this is how we're going to do this. We're going to show the good and the bad. We're going to show the struggles and the triumphs. And we're going to really lay it out there. Because in my opinion, leading this international community of women, if I just only showed the parts where I'm all together and I'm looking perfect and my hair is done just right and everything is just together and my life is just a divine synergy of perfection at all times and I have no problems. Well, what does that do for the people who are in my community when they're having a hard time? It makes them feel like they must be nutty and off their rockers when it couldn't be farther from the truth. The truth is we fall down on a regular basis and we have to figure out how to get back up and collaborate with each other.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it takes your sisters pulling you back up. And I know that that's one of the things I was so grateful to with the Dames, where I just had last year was like this like psychological moment of holy crap. After and you would think it would come after something disastrous. No, but it came after manifesting our dream home and suddenly dream realized. And it felt like my whole world crumbled and a whole paradigm crumbled for me. And I think that that's something that it was an old paradigm from old limiting beliefs and old childhood. And I know exactly where it stems from.
Oh yeah, of course.
And at the same time, it's like, I was so grateful to that community to say, I'm struggling with balancing everything and being a mom and how I'm handling my children and how I'm navigating my own mental health and being able to have people that just reached out to me and women who just from around the world were just dropping me messages and love notes of I understand, I've been there, whose kids were a little older, that. It just was, I am so grateful to you and to that community of the Dames to just be able to have held that space for me.
Absolutely. And thank you for saying that, because it's the celebrating of the successes that is equally as hard, if not harder, than admitting the failures. And I've watched so many Dames come to our knees from being I don't feel like I can tell anybody this. And those are some of my favorite calls. Mm-hmm. And my favorite posts that I see in our Facebook group are those wow, I just did this thing that I didn't think that I could possibly do. And I'm admitting this out loud, and I have so many people celebrating me because we're not jealous of each other. We're not looking at this as, oh, that competition. Man, I got to really get ahead. Comparison, it's such a thief of joy. I'm going to just, now I've seen that, Kimberly's doing so great. Now I'm just going to be rolling in my own crap to talk about what I'm not doing right. That's not what the Dames is about. And we give each other that space to really celebrate when we do something right and commiserate when we're like, man, this is hard. I'm in the dark, deep place. And that vulnerability in action is, I think, things that, Brene Brown dreamed of 20 years ago when she started talking about this. And it's coming to life and it's coming to light. And I love it.
It is. I think that the entire, I see such a different paradigm for business owners as more women enter the entrepreneur force and grow it, because we just are realizing, like, I will literally walk around my house. I'm like, I don't know how people do this alone. Like, I don't know, like without a bookkeeper, without a housekeeper, without a like some form of like childcare support. Like, I'm blessed to have my mom, but like, I literally walk around like there is no way you can do it without support in anything these days. Like, I just love to look around and see how supported I am. And I don't think it's just me. I think if we are able to recognize around us just how much support we actually need and lean on the genius zones of others, that lifts other people's up.
And what that requires, and there's so many things that requires, but you asked me earlier, how did I uncover my genius? And it's been those points along the way that have really helped me. Like when I realized that I didn't want to be all things to all people as a marketing person. I didn't want to be running your traditional agency where I'm the chief strategist and then I have all these other implementers. And I wanted to be a coach, and I wanted to partner with and be able to refer to these other professionals who are great in their lane. And that required me getting uber clear on what I'm great at. So when you're thinking about those things that help you get in those pivotal moments from 5 figures to 6 figures, 6 figures to mid 6 to high 6 to 7 figures to 8 to 9, is the acumen and the like whittling down of what am I here to create. I'm not here to, like, people have asked me, why don't you start a junior Dames? I'm not here to get people from 5 to 6 figures. There's a lot of great organizations out there that are focused on that. I'm here in that 6 to 7 figure transition. And I believe that the more of us that can get to 7 figures and start changing our realities and creating dynamic company cultures and hiring the most amazing people, like you said, those are those moments of, wow, I'm making a real difference. And that's what I'm here for on this planet. So if all the women could take time to really say, well, yes, I have a zone of competence or a zone of incompetence to do X, Y, Z, it is much more in my favor and in the favor of others if I surround myself with and pay others who are much better at doing certain things than I am, so that I can stay in my lane and focus on honing my craft and also not working so hard. I think we tend to think that if we're going to be the next breadwinners, we've almost got to like put on a mustache and go back to the 80s and start working as if we're, an old 80s TV producer. We're going to sit in our office. We're going to sleep there. We're going to work there, 80 hours a week. We're going back to Mad Men. And, we're going to have Meshuggah on the side, but that's a whole different story. we're gonna be, we're gonna have to work all these hours, and we're gonna have to, work our fingers to the grindstone and da da da. No, that's what causes burnout. That's what causes women to have breakdowns and overwhelm. And that's why I was saying that is not the sustainable divine feminine energy. Mm-hmm. And the sooner we can learn that, the better. And the sooner that we can learn to build our businesses based on our passion and what brings us that passion and what brings us that joy and what brings us that, like, yes, I'm achieving my mission. Do more of that and make sure that you have the space and the time already in your calendar, first and foremost, for yourself and for your family. Because if you're doing it, and I know this is cliche, but if you're doing it on an empty tank, yeah, you might coast into some illusory made up pit stop, but geez, you're going to have to really have some significant recharge time, which usually comes after a burnout, if you're going to get back on the road and do anything for any period of time. So we'd be better off just getting clear on what it is that we want, getting our businesses built around that.
And then leaning into the choices on a day-to-day basis, because that's when I was just having a conversation with my husband about this over lunch, where I was like, I am so quick that like certain fun activities, those are the first to go if I'm in a push week. And like these past 2 weeks, especially in our agency, have been in a significant push week. And I'm all for the contractions of business, of like that, the seasons when there is more of a push, like you're literally pushing a baby out to the next level, like you're elevating the income to the next level. And so I get it and I'm all for it. But I was like, I realized the first thing I will just sacrifice would be something fun, like our swing dancing classes, or like we're going to go get licensed to ride motorcycles this weekend. And I was like, I have to figure out how to squeeze in a 5-hour training course within this next week. And yet looking at elevating to that next level of fun, I'm like, that's a non-negotiable for me, because this is a goal that I've had. This is something that I've wanted to do. And so when you're in those seasons, when you're building the business to actually support your life and the lifestyle that you choose to have and the lifestyle that you say that you want, how have you not negotiated or worked yourself out of being able to receive?
So I think there's a couple of things. I think that there is one principle that is crucial for us to acknowledge as women, in that we run on a 24 to 32 day cycle. We do not run in a 24-hour cycle like our male counterparts. So if we are continuing to try to run our businesses or run our lives on the structures that are around us, we are going to be running. It's like in human design, it's like us projectors, because you're a projector too, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like us projectors trying to run as generators. We can do it for a period of time, but it is not sustainable for any long term. So we can get through those periods of time, but what happens to me when I ignore my natural rhythms and when I ignore the 28-day cycle that I've put together for myself and my business, that's when I find myself being in my follicular and my ovulation periods of time and being like, I can do that. Oh, I can do that too. Oh, yes, I'm going to say yes to that. And I'm going to say yes to that. And then I get into my luteal phase when I actually have to deliver it. And I'm like, what in the hell was I thinking? So a big part of that is really understanding that as women, we are cyclical beings, and understanding is half the battle, but then blocking time and then adhering to that blocked time. So it's from a tangible perspective, it's about really maybe getting some understanding. Do Less is one of my favorite books by Kate Northrup, and that's where I learned a lot of this. And it's extremely simple to organize your month in that regard, having some room for flexibility, because of course, those of us who are going through perimenopause, we might have that erratic schedule as it is, or maybe those who have small children like you are having, different changes and challenges. And then women who are past their moon cycles can follow the moon. But the point is knowing ourselves and knowing our natural rhythms. And that requires stopping, slowing down, and really getting in tune with who we are and when we have a lot of energy and when we don't, and honoring our schedules as such. I think what women really forget to look at, especially when we're technicians and not actual serial entrepreneurs who really understand the art of business and buy and then sell, multi-8-figure businesses, which is not most of us. We are technicians that started a business because we were passionate about something And then we have realized, oh gosh, if I'm really going to grow a 7 or 8 figure business, I actually have to know what I'm doing with finance. I have to know what I'm doing with HR. I have to know what I'm doing with all these different counterparts. So we've got to not only budget time for ourselves, for our cycles, but also, oh yeah, I need to meet with my bookkeeper to make sure that we go over all the transactions and make sure that everything is categorized properly. And I need to make sure that I'm making time to meet with XYZ who's on my team too. So the whole thing is really be looking at yourself and how, don't set your goals and your aspirations based on some comparison that you've got or some illusory pie in the sky situation. Be real with yourself. Like, okay, at best, I might have 10 hours a week to work on my business. And it's going to require that I do that for 4 years in order to get to this next point. So instead of saying that I'm going to create 100 times leap this year, I'm going to instead plan in a way that makes me be able to be receptive, be able to guide through my intuition, which is very feminine, and gives myself space to create just for the sake of creating and to be in my geniuses of ideation or whatever it is that you are, or us, projectors being guides instead of, and waiting for that dang invitation. And what does that look like? So there's so many layers upon layers, and it's like, for anyone to think that they have a formula that you can just plug yourself into,
yeah,
it doesn't exist that way.
It doesn't. It doesn't. In fact, this was the year that I was like, I am nixing and not working with anybody specifically, and taking this entire year to learn to just do an experiment and trust my own intuitive flow. And I'll let you know how it goes in December.
Yeah.
But so far, like, it's going really well. Just learning how to trust that in your own innate flow for how you do business, life, your own way. And that also is like being aware of these other modalities, being aware of like astrology, human design, your natural menstrual flow and these things, but also not letting those things control you. Because like, I may be a projector, but I got Taurus in my 10th house, and that's a bull for my career. And so there's a different level of energy for every single human being, and really learning to come back to the body and trust that body. How did you generate your own intuition? You are such an intuitive human being, business owner, and I think part of that is natural, but I think part of it also came with practice. And so
a ton of practice. So I believe that the universe always puts us in certain places at certain times to give us those pivotal moments of decision. And I ran into the topic of intuition at the absolute right time when I was ready for it. And it was about, oh gosh, what is it at this time? Like 13-ish years ago, when I was like kind of in a rebirth place of like, I need new friends, I need new community, I need new everything, because what I'm doing here, it doesn't bring me a lot of joy and satisfaction. And what I didn't know is that I needed to quit drinking, but that's something I found out down the line. But what I did start tapping into was this community of conscious people here in Denver. And there were a lot of, early form groups that I just jumped in and dove in head first with. And I had this amazing opportunity to go and work for one of my still favorite people in the whole world, Rika Zimmerman, who is a consciousness leader around the globe. And I took a job to do her social media while I was building my business. And it gave me this PhD level in consciousness and in getting into self-love and in really getting in tune with your own intuition and how it speaks to you and how you can trust it, and gave me such a great practice playground to have that be a guiding light for me. And what my intuition started showing me in the way that she teaches things is like, your intuition's going to tell you things that you're like, are you crazy? So after I had my first vision of like 2017 of what the Dames would look like on an international scale, closely followed by you need to quit drinking because that's the big block that's in your way, which I did, closely followed by now you need to figure out how to get fun back in your life and your business because you've been hanging on by a fingernail for the last several years. And we've known that you've needed to kind of work your kinks out here, but it's time. And so 2018, I did a year-long improv program. And because I was always telling myself, you and I know this, we talk about this before Dames Roundtables, like we have this theatrical part of ourselves. We cannot help it but to really get excited and to really just want to play and to get out there and to have different accents. And I'm like, how the heck am I going to bring that into my marketing business? And people are going to think I'm a nut job. And so I did this whole year of improv. And what I realized was, oh man, I love this sketch comedy thing. And I love coming up with characters. And so I got to spend all of 2019 then incubating on how do I use these characters to build and teach through the Dames, teach these different networking concepts, teach community building concepts, and then teach business building concepts and personal growth concepts. And I've just gotten to like allowing myself to close my marketing business and to do what I truly wanted, which is still and will always be to guide this community of visionaries and pioneers and epic world transformers called the Dames to their next best level and beyond. The big thing for me was, okay, edutainment. That's where the fun is for me. That's where I get to bring out all of my creativity in such cool ways and develop characters that can teach lessons. And people listen when there's an accent that comes in. You know, it's what happens. You just you just say, oh my God, I really understand what she's saying. And I want to hear what she's going to say next. Because she just came out with some truth bombs. And while the truth bombs can be delivered by Meghann Conter, they can also get delivered by all these different characters, and then people remember them. By golly, they remember them. And it's
boy, do that. I don't remember the name, but oh my gosh, you in that gray wig and just teaching Graham.
That's networking Nelly, honey. Nelly's been around since the dawn of time. She's the creator of the power partner process. She knows exactly what we need in order to grow businesses, just like we grew communities back in the old days, honey.
And it's the joy of bringing that. And you are the second person in 2 days that I've had a conversation about the power of improvisational comedy. And I studied improv. I was a part of a touring improv group in my teens and played at the LA Improv and all that. And like the power of yes and, I think, is actually what runs the universe.
Oh, that totally does.
That's just my hypothesis, is this paradox of like accepting what is and choosing to flow with it.
Where are you going to find the gift and how are you going to give your teammates the gift?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the cure that we set out to talk about here on this podcast was how do we integrate fun in? And for me, what I think I discovered was it wasn't going to be shoehorned into my business. It wasn't going to be like something that I could wedge in there because I discovered that fun was my top value while I was running my marketing business. And I'm like, man, I don't know how to deliver this in my very serious sessions where we're working and uncovering a lot of things. And so that's where the Dames events started to come out as this place where I could play and I could have comedians and I could start to bring out that theatrical side of myself and get comfortable with it. And now it's like, man, if I could just figure out a way to do that 24/7, which is what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you read the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership?
Not yet.
Ooh, it is. They have a chapter dedicated to play. And it's one of the commitments. And when my mentor and now dear friend, Tirza Shirai, recommended that, she grew a business from 0 to 30 million in 3 years. And that was one of the top books she recommended. And I said, okay, I'm reading this. And it was like fun. And I was like, back in 2019, I was like, how do I have fun?
Yeah.
I had a toddler at the time.
Yeah.
And a fast growing business. And I was right at that almost 6-figure level. And it was like, there was hard. And it was like, how do I do more and all that. And it was like, bring more fun. And I've had to realize how I play.
Yeah.
My husband says my form of play is absolutely insane because I like to do really challenging physical things. And he's like, he's all for it. He'll be there at the finish line, but he's like, you're crazy. Because I would run a marathon with like no training and just, let's give it a go. Have a baby naturally. Like, these are my fun, weird forms of play. Some may call it sadism. That's my form of play. It is what it is. We all have our kinks.
And you figured it out. You figured out that yours is through body. Mine is through voice. Mine is through like just embodying some other character and going into that. And it's like you start to figure it out just like you figure out anything else, right? I don't like riding bikes. Why is that? I like riding skateboards, or I don't like riding. You just play with different things. And like our good friend Minette Riordan would say, like, women, in order to be the paradigm shifters that we are, we need to unlock our creativity and play. And that's going to be different for different people. For her, it's through art. It's through that creative expression of, paintbrush to canvas. And it's through that demonstration. For others, it's through stand-up comedy and getting up there and, for some reason, I don't understand it, scaring themselves poopless up on stage. It's not one that I'm ready for. But we all have to figure out what that form of play is. And that is really a comforting stretch of our comfort zone, I think.
Yeah, for me, it's physical, and it's also shows. Like, it's showmanship.
Oh, yeah.
And that play that can come through shows and like seeing. So when I discovered that, like, I also took this principle and I applied it to my parenting, where I'm like, I'm not a mom to just like, we're just going to sit here and just watch TV together. I'm like, like, I'll do it. Like, I love a movie night like once a week, but I like to go outside and like go like run and get on the scooters and then play in that way. And when I realized that's my momming in my best light, I think we all have a genius zone for every role that we play in every one of the relationships that we have.
Yep.
And so I know you weren't always playful, like, apparently, which is shocking to me because I've only known you as playful. But when did you have that stick up your ass, and why?
I thought that I had to be that stick up my ass type person in order to be taken seriously. It was corporate America that created that. Like, I couldn't be feminine in any way, shape, or form. In fact, the quieter I was and the more that I could just stay in my corner doing what I was told to be doing, the better, which, as you can imagine, as a theatrical performer by nature, you try to put me in the corner and you better watch out because I'm going to become you're not going to be able to
put baby in a corner.
That's right. You're not going to be able to contain me for long, people. So I lashed out through coping mechanisms. And I think a lot of people do. And that might be overeating, that might be drinking, that might be workaholism, that might be, who knows? It can be so many different things. And I realized, like, oh yeah, I'm relying on my social life and getting these little dopamine hits from going out and hanging out with friends and partying and living the life that I had been living when I was in my 20s. And it's just because I was so uncomfortable in that corporate setting and it was so not me. And then when I got into business for myself, it was like, okay, I feel like I'm actually an entrepreneur. But then it took me more years to figure out who I really was. And during that time, I still was like, there's nobody that's going to take me seriously if I show up in a wig and whatever, like that's not what's going to happen. So I still went through more years of painful trying to make myself look like something that I'm not, until I woke up that in 2017 was like, nope, I gotta get this out of me. And it's got to be out of me at all times. That performer, as my unique ability, one of my unique abilities, has to be on stage, whether that's in a video or whether that's on a true stage. She has to be out there giving her gifts and teaching things and creating transformation through edutainment. So we all have to find our thing. And there's a journey to get there. But once you figure it out, don't stop. You're going to have those imposter syndrome moments that pop up and are like, really? This is what you're going to do? And if you need any other of us people who embody and believe in performance to give you a thumbs up and say, yes, you can do this, you find us. We're out here. It's the Kimberlys and the Meghanns of the world. It's us performers who you're going to find doing the kookiest things and having fun social media presence. And because we have found that, and we know that that is just as important as the nitty gritty, getting down to the transformational turbulence and the going through the eyes of the needles, and all those things are equally as important as being your fullest expression of your playful self, whatever that looks like for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I love what you said about how corporate America popped that stick up there, because I experienced a similar experience of just like the playful side, the feminine side when I had my e-commerce company. Like that had to be so buttoned up. In fact, and then got threw back in my face thanks to lawyers. Yay. They say the nicest things
all the time.
All the time. When you're paying them, they say really nice things. When they're on the other side, not so much. And in that experience, it really allowed me to look at like, what do I define to be professionalism? Because so often we think that play is the polar opposite of professionalism. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. So how do you define being a professional businesswoman running a successful business?
Mm-hmm.
How do you define that? What is professionalism?
Oh, man. If there is a word that I could eradicate from, I don't even know where to go with that, because it's not a top value of mine.
Mm-hmm.
It's, for me, it would be self-expression, like aligned self-expression. Because for some people, that does look like a very buttoned up approach where they feel like they're totally in alignment with themselves when they're serious, and they're, that there are some people that are like that. But I think that most people that put on that facade are dying inside in some way, shape, or form, because they're like, this isn't who I truly am. And this face that I'm having to present in my corporate job or even in my business in order to be taken seriously, or in order to be XYZ, whatever, to get the contract, to get the deed, I just have had too many awarenesses in my spiritual practice to see that that's not what I'm here for. I've had too many total visualizations of my joy coming in this lifetime from being on stage, from being different characters, from being the wholeness of me, which is a personal and a professional blend that sometimes falls and needs to cry on screen, and then other times is exuberant and is full of different ideas. And I think that we have to figure out what our values are. And I don't mean that in such a like, it's not just do your 5 top values exercise, lady. It's not. It's truly figuring out how to embody that in your own unique and genuine way, because that is what will bring you that joy. That is what will bring you safety in play, whatever that play looks like. And again, it's not, for some, it's not getting up and performing in front of people. It's having that play in the safety of your own home through art, or it's having that play in some other way, shape, or form. But the idea that professionalism has to look a certain way is what limits so many of us. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this interview of like, we feel like we have to wear our woman's suit and just blend in and look like a man with long hair and somehow blend into this mold that's been created, when the real women who are going to make history and who are going to shift these paradigms and break out of those molds don't look anything like a man dressed with a wig and a suit. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. And the visual is spot on.
Spot on.
Spot on. I think being professional, there are attributes like showing up on time, respecting other people's, time. But beyond that, like how you express yourself in your business, I don't think that has any connotation of professionalism or not. Like, I do think that there's a whole concept of like cursing versus not. I know the Dames is the best place to drop a dick joke.
Yep.
And
Create an F-bomb and
an F-bomb when appropriate. Like,
Yep.
everybody needs an appropriately placed fuck. Just from
I agree. 100%. Yep.
So,
I'm surprised we've gotten this far without even having a fuck until right now.
right?
You know, sometimes it just happens.
Seriously. Sometimes it's a spontaneous fuck and it just has to happen when it
Yeah,
happens.
it's just like Smurf. Pops out at different times. All different kinds of articles. Noun, verb, adjective, adverb. Perfect participle.
Exactly. Far more grammatical terms than I am aware
It's
of.
only because I'm fluent in French. Otherwise, I would have no idea.
Oh, true. So the power of that of having professional habits, but not necessarily having it be an identity of this is who I have to be, because then in that space we're shoulding ourselves. And no one likes to go through life or business, and it doesn't feel very freeing or liberating to have should all over you while you are, pursuing your passions.
Right. And I guess where, I get caught up is when we have certain values that just sound like they're like, I had to have this.
Yeah.
Professionalism is one of my values. What the heck does that mean? Like, what does that truly mean? How do you embody being professional that's in a way that is a true value? A value is something that you use as a decision-making tool. Is it something you should do or is it not? The only way to know that is if it's truly in alignment deeply with that value. And if you don't know what fun means to you, what love means to you, what intuition means to you, what impact and growth mean to you, those are mine, then you can't really run it as a litmus test. It's like the throw out, I hate to say it, but the throw out that almost every single financial services firm on the planet has integrity as one of their values. I'm like, no shit. Like, go a little deeper. What does that mean? What is beneath that? And what is beneath that? And what's beneath that? Because truly, it's like, I could say growth, but what does growth mean to me? If my comfort zone isn't being expanded on a regular basis, if I am not growing in, like, doing the kinds of personal growth work that I love and that I thrive in, if I'm not knowing myself more every single quarter, if I'm not achieving these different things that are part of my litmus test to whether I'm living in growth or not, then how do I know that I'm actually living in my values? And if you can't say that with all of your values, then go back to the drawing board and see if they're the right words.
Mm-hmm. So true. So true. I think the being able to look at what are the values, the presupposed values that society has said you should have, or that, you do on a one-day personal retreat seminar, and you're like, well, here are my top 5 values, versus the deepening. So what's the litmus test that you have to really assess, is this value still applicable to how I'm making decisions in my life and business?
Is it still applicable? I think that as we grow as business owners and I add team, it expands and changes, because now it's not only my values, but it's also the values of the company that we have to run things through. So there are values of the Dames that we have that we run all the big decisions through. Does this match all of our 4 core values, or does it not? And if it doesn't, then okay, well, is it just because something needs to be tweaked, or is it because it's truly not in alignment, or, where is that going? Because it's not just me, it's me and my team now. And then also, if it's something that I'm going to be involved in, or that's part of my role, is it something that is truly in alignment with me and my personal values? So it's values and vision and mission, and all of it are not just something that you figure out one time and then, okay, I've got it. It's written on a book. It's somewhere over there on my bookshelf, and I could find it if I needed to. But that's not living in your values. That's not living in your vision or your mission. It's, do you have these things out in front of you all the time, and is it helping you make those decisions? So, for instance, trading high stress for high caliber is one of our top values. So when I'm looking at, okay, Kimberly and I run our digital virtual roundtables. These changes that I'm making, is it making it easier or is it making it more complex? It's making it easier. Great. It's making it more scalable. Great. Then it passes the test. But if I were to come up with a change and I'm adding all these layers of complexity, that's not trading high stress for high caliber. That's creating more complexity. Collaborating fearlessly. If I am being presented with an opportunity to work with someone, is it truly a collaboration that we are creating? Do we have each other's best interests in mind? And is what I do for them and what they do for me, is it going to mutually lift us up? And is this someone that I truly want to collaborate with, that I want to put my name on the line for, because I feel that we can really support each other? And, to go back to what you were saying earlier, it's like we need to be judicious and deliberate with where we say our yeses and where we say our nos as we grow. And our values have to be that siphon of, okay, is this just my tendency as a Enneagram 7 to say yes to this thing? Or is this going to allow me to continue to grow toward our epic mission? Is this going to make the boat go faster towards 7 figures for me and all of my members? No, it's going to slow it down. Then I can't do it. And then another one of our values is get out of serious. So that's obviously the fun one. So are we always creating some element in our business, whether that's at the Funference, whether that's in our virtual events, whether that's in our in-person events, that is helping women have fun? And for one frickin' moment or 10 minutes to put down the seriousness and let their hair out of their ponytail, their high-held ponytail, and really be in the moment and let yourself laugh and let yourself just let go and feel that space of like total presence of laughter and that space of freedom that comes from just unclenching our sphincters for 10 minutes.
Amen. Remove the pull.
Yes. And then our one last value that we have is evolving in broad daylight. And this is that space that you and I have kind of touched on already about vulnerability and what does it look like to be a CEO who's willing to show the bruises and the bumps as well as the victories, and who's willing to really shout from the rooftops the victories, and to say, at least with their shared, Dames pod, be like, hey, I just need to really celebrate this with somebody. And I don't need it to be heard across all the social media platforms maybe, but I really need for this safe group that I've created to celebrate like you did last year. And how you saw all that support coming in and how beautiful it is for all of us to witness that. And how we really, when we do that, we're like, man, I need to celebrate my wins more. Because look at how fun it is to be like, yes, Kimberly, well done.
That was one of my favorite changes that we made to the roundtable, was having that moment of celebration and acknowledgement for every woman who comes onto those roundtables, because they are in the top 15% of businesswomen, and that is not celebrated. Like, I remember the moment when I hit 6 figures, and it was this like, what the hell? Like even my husband was like, he's never done that. Like I did that. And it was such a moment for me that was just, I had to really honor it. And I was so excited. And I was so excited because I got to join the Dames.
Yeah.
Because that was one of my goals, to be able to be there to do that. I think, and I love the collaboration and that value that's placed in the Dames and how high that is. And I think what I'd love to dive into real quick is what is a collaboration? Because so many people, a lot of people or women will have a perception that a collaboration is not necessarily transactional, where it's not services or services being rendered, or that the collaboration is, oh, you're helping me, I'm helping you, we're just not getting paid. So I think that a collaboration can have a whole rainbow of options.
Yes.
What is a collaboration in your definition, and how do we form the best ones that are for our highest and best intention?
I think it really does matter where you are in the stage of business that you're in and the stage of your own professional growth and life that you're in. So if you are well, we'll talk about like the situations of your own personal life in a second, but when you're in a business and you're really growing in those initial stages of 100K to 250K-ish, chances are you are needing to collaborate to really increase your footprint. So you and I are doing something where we can put it out there to the world, and we have twice as many people that can get exposure to us, or if we use our power partners, 10 times as many people who can get exposure to us, to list build, to be able to sell some kind of a collaborative offer that we've come up with, to even say, okay, well, wow, you and I share the same target audience, and I've got this workshop coming up, and then 2 months later, you've got this other thing that you're launching. Let's cross promote for each other. Or I've really gotten to know, I'm a CMO, and I've really gotten to know this COO well, and I've witnessed the work that she does with her clients, and my clients really need that. So once they're done going through my CMO program, I'm going to refer them to these people because they need to go and get their operations in check next. So those are some examples of some collaborations that tend to happen when you're in those newer stages of growth. And then when you're really catapulting past that 250K line, which is about 6% of women-owned business owners that get to that point, you are starting to look at things like, okay, I'm recognizing that I need to hire a CFO to help me with my next jump in money because I don't know cash flow management. I don't really know how to budget. So I'm going to hire people for that. And I'm not at that point where I'm really needing to do a lot of these other collaborative things that I did when I was in an earlier stage. But now I'm like, gosh, I just want to be able to get on a call with somebody who's been through this thing that I'm going through right now and ask what were the pitfalls that they hit or that I should avoid, or what are some key pieces of guidance that I could use as I'm getting to go to that next level in the legal aspects of my business, or I'm launching this new program, and do you have any pieces of information for me? Or gosh, I'm making a total shift in my business and I have a new target audience. Who can I collaborate with to help me do a focus group to really figure out what's next? Who is willing to review this sales page copy with me? And I have this incredible talent in looking at the data of your podcast, and I would love to gift you, me giving you some ins and outs. The collaborations become a lot different, and it becomes, all right, who else is at my level that can see me tete-a-tete and can say, actually, have you thought about it from this angle? Or have you thought about it from that angle? And so it requires us to put on our big girl pants and say, okay, I know what my zone is and I know what my lane is. And I'd really love other women to be able to think tank this with and problem solve this with in light speed so that I don't get stuck on this problem for the next 3 months or have to join a $300,000 mastermind in order to solve these problems. So basically they happen differently at different stages.
I think that that's one of the beautiful things about the Dames and the strategic matchmaking that you provide, and is being able to look at like where the business is at, and then what is those next people to grow. So because you may be doing all the right things to grow your business, but if they're not in the right order, it can completely throw your business for a loop and cause extra chaos, extra stuff, extra unnecessary treading water, rather than being able to actually grow and expand.
For sure. And it can make you feel like a nutcase too.
True.
Because you're like,
True.
I swear I think I'm doing this right, but I just don't understand why.
Yeah.
It's like the truth of the matter is we all have blind spots. And even if we're lucky enough to have a kick-ass business partner that's our husband who can, see things that we can't, or another woman, another whatever, it doesn't matter, or a key leader in our teams, having outside eyes is always invaluable. That is so crucial, because we don't see our blind spots when we're in it every day. We just don't.
Yeah. And it's the best to be able to see, and even your team can provide that, like that scope. I mean, my gosh, when my team gave me feedback, when I meet with them semi-annually to say like, okay, how can I improve as a leader? What do I need to, last year, because they were rough, I had to learn how to show up differently for them, because I just was in a different place of growth and expansion, and also how to have a level of deep care, which is one of the things that you are so good at. And it's something that I think as you go along in business, I know for me, it was something that I kind of got scared away from for a little bit, because it felt almost easier not to. But you lead with such an open heart, and I've always admired that about your leadership and the care for people to see you as you are, and the deep care that you have for others and how you support them in growing. And it's a value that I truly deeply admire from you.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's the love that I have for humanity, and in my human design chart, and like my purpose and all of my charts and stars and everything is to be this transporter of love. And there are some people that can't handle that, and it's okay. I love them just as much. And it's one of my favorite things to do when we're at Fun Friends or when we're at any of our in-person events, and I just get to hug someone and transform them in that space of total acceptance. And just like, I know it's been hard, and I just want you to know I see you and I'm here for you, and you're doing a great job. You know, don't lose steam. Don't lose that beautiful vision of yours. But if you need to slow down, it's okay to slow down. And if you need extra hugs, come to the names. Or high fives. Either
or high fives. High fives work too. Oh, Meghann, I have loved our conversation so much, and I would love to pivot into just a little bit of rapid fire to wrap this up.
Let's do it.
Down?
Down.
Who is your favorite female character in a book or a movie, and why?
Oh, man, I just love Michelle Obama's books, and I love her style and her ability to, she's not a character, so I'm totally taking this, making my own rules, but just her ability to tote the line between fierce, intelligent, brilliant woman and this soft, supple, like she's divine feminine in my viewpoint. Like when I read what she writes and I read her words, she's just got it. And that's what I aspire to be, is this like this good mix of divine feminine and masculine. And yeah, I gotta say that.
What woman would you want to trade places with, alive or alive in her time and any time in history, to see as she experienced the world just for a day?
Not a famous woman, but just like I'd love to go back into, for some reason, the Roaring 20s has always been a period of time that's very fascinating to me. So I just want to go and be like a carefree, rich woman in the 1920s. Like, I don't know. It'd just be interesting to me to be like, what did that feel like?
Bring on Gatsby. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to be one of Gatsby's fun people. Whatever you'd call it, cronies.
I love it.
One of his groupies.
Yeah. What is your morning routine to set you up for success?
I always have some form of exercise, well, whether it's going outside for a walk or doing weight training. And that's a pretty much non-negotiable. Eating healthy. I am a variety seeker, so I have like a box of ideas that I pull from a lot of times. Sometimes I'll be listening to, Audible to a really great personal growth book. Sometimes I'll be sitting in meditation. Sometimes I'll visualize. Sometimes I'll journal. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of creative thought. But for me, it's that having the variety that is the spice of life. Sometimes it's talking to a friend. Like this morning, I get to just call a friend and talk to her for an hour. And that was so fun for me, that connection. So it's that ability to have my freedom of choice and what it is that I want to do to start off my day, depending on how I'm feeling.
How do you set yourself up for a successful morning? What's your night routine?
Night routine is I go to bed by about 8:15, 8:30. And as long as I'm in bed at that time, I am set, because then I can go fall asleep by about 8:30, 8:45. And I get up at about 5 and I rock and roll. So it's about getting off screens and getting either with my book or just going straight to bed early enough. It's my natural rhythm.
What do you define to be your queendom?
My queendom is everybody that I come into touch with. And as long as they can feel more empowered after they've been with me, I have done my bid.
And
as long as they can feel more loved too while I'm in it.
How do you crown yourself?
It's through the performances that I create, and it's through that ability to really stand on stage, whether that be by facilitating something online or by facilitating something in person, creating that transformational experience. It's that stepping into my divine self and making sure that that's part of the transformation that I create on a weekly basis. It reminds me of the queen that I am.
Meghann, how do we find you? How do we work with you? How do we jump in on the round tables and see us both?
Yes, see you and I in our glory, in our accents,
in our glory, and
whatever it is, dancing, pull out. That's right. That's right. There's a couple different ways. If you want to connect with me as a person, you can come to Instagram or Facebook and look for Meghann Conter. You'll find that in the show notes, because I have a funny Irish spelling of my name. You know, that was a terrible Irish accent. And if you are a woman running or leading a 6, 7, or 8-figure business, or you're in a director or higher role of a large organization, and you are impact driven, you are somebody who loves a good time, loves to have laughter in your life, and really wants to not only grow professionally, but recognizes that personal growth is that driving force, and you're a vulnerable soul, come to thedames.co/roundtable. Come check us out. You get to meet me and Kimberly and really see what we're about. Or if you're someone who just is like, yes, you've already sold me on it, you can go to thedames.co/apply and submit that application. And Kimberly, I just want to take a moment to shine the light back on you and say thank you for being such a fabulous podcast host, for using your intuition to guide, for flipping the script and always just following that knowing, because it creates dynamic podcasts, and you do it with everything. So thank you.
Thank you so much. As always, my fellow sovereigns, own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. If what you heard resonated with you, be sure to subscribe and start creating a bigger impact now by sharing this with a friend. Just by doing that one simple act of kindness, you are creating a royal ripple to support more people in their sovereignty. And if you're not already following on social media, connect with me everywhere at crownyourself.now for more inspiration. I am so excited to connect with you in the next episode. And in the meantime, go out there and create a body, business, and life that rules. Because today, you crown yourself.